Well, hello everyone. The good news is this video is not going to be very long. I'm not going to be talking for too long, but the bad news is I don't have a whole lot of fish videos to show. But I wanted first off to thank all of you who sent me the emails and with their wishes for my speedy recovery during a recent illness. I was pretty well out of it for a couple of weeks. I'm still not back on top of things yet. But I wanted to touch base and so everybody can see I'm still around. And also to thank so many of you for recipes. And one guy sent me an ad for a pressure cooker crock pot to make soups. And so anyway, thank you so much. When I go out into the post office or I find myself at the hospital, I'm the fish guy. Everybody knows me as the fish guy. And so my primary care physician I've known for a long time. He actually breeds magnolias, so he's also a bit of a scientist. But anyway, he would come up to me and say, "Tell me again what your work schedule is." And you do this 7 days a week? So anyway, I'm having to make a few tweaks to the way I'm doing things here. And I'll go into those a bit more in a moment. But I started Select Aquatics when the national clubs really kind of restricted room sales and the fish stopped being at the conventions. And so I had a lot of the fish that were just staples at the conventions that you used to be able to get like every April. Things like the Xiphophorus montezuma, the Limia nigrofasciata, the Pasilia volifera, a variety of different species. And so anyway, I had many of these. And so I thought, well, you know, why don't I raise them up? And I set my prices to be just a little bit less than what you would pay for them at the convention. So if you spent $10 at the convention for it, my initial prices were that they were $7.50 a piece. And so then also if I was breeding them up, then you'd have them year round, and then everybody would breed them and distribute among themselves because they were available from, at least I was doing my best to keep them available so that they could stay in the hobby until, you know, they started appearing in conventions again or whatever. So in my effort to do this, I put up a letter at the website, the open letter to hobbyists and universities and such that you'll see on the link from the homepage at the selectaquatics.com, and I put it up there a little over 3 years ago. And many of you have written and asked what the response has been on that. And in this letter, I say, hey, you know, here's a few species that are disappearing from the hobby, in my opinion, and they really need attention. And so if someone could take on just one of these to breed them, to sell them back into the hobby, putting them up on Aquabid, various things, I'll help you. I'm not the least bit concerned about anybody competing with me, because the whole point of this is to keep these fish in the hobby. So I must say, and like I say, many of you have asked, you know, what has happened with that? Well, I've gotten dozens of responses. It's obviously a letter that everybody has read. All the responses usually go, man, I'm so glad that you posted that letter. That's so good to see, you know, and I'm glad to hear that those species, that you still have them and they're doing well, and I really hope someone's able to breed these for you. Of all the responses I got, I had 2 people who said they would take me up on my offer. They were both in Canada. One was so far north I couldn't get fish to him because I can't ship out of the U.S., and the other gentleman was up in Vancouver, and he was joking with me that we would have a Select Aquatics West, you know, where he would be selling to Canadian customers out of Vancouver. And he started building his fish room and then got into it, and then wrote me one day just to say that, I don't know if he ran out of money or what happened, but he gave up on the whole idea and he's out of it. So no one has ever taken me up on that. And so based on the kindly words of my doctor, what I would like to do is focus on the species that I have here. There are a couple that I don't have anymore, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. But I will still continue to focus on the Montezuma, the Volifera splendens, the Iliodon furcidens, the Cynodonus lucipinis, and of course my Odessas, and of course the green dragons. And then I've also got here, and I probably will not allow it to go, and I'll just keep building them up, are the Maiai, the Hellerai Rio Otapa, and the Limia tigers. Also I have the Limia perugia bocadecations here that had a rough winter. They're kind of limping along, but they're coming back and showing a good spring. And also, of course, there's the Xenotoca lion's eye, and the Dodroi, of course, is one that will always stay around, and I'll always build that out for. The Zoogeneticus tequila, which I'm working on, and I do have a Mica splendens here. So you can see that's still a large plate of species of fish, because I'm not really good at saying no and cutting back when I should. But I will mention that this past year we had temperatures here that were way above anything that's ever been expected for this area. And the house AC here was not built to handle the temperatures we had. This has been the case for the last 2-3 years, but last year was really bad. And I couldn't keep many of my tank temperatures below 76 degrees, and many of the Goodeids did not breed for me. So the Crocodons right now are being kept by others who are breeding them. We did replace the AC and the furnace here, so that hopefully this coming year things will be better. But I will be cutting back on a couple of those more fragile species that have not done well for me, for whatever reason. So anyway, one of the things that's coming up is I'll be redoing the website. So I'm finally introducing a shopping cart for my hard goods. Not for the fish, but for the hard goods, so that you'll be able to push a button and be able to order the fertilizer, the levamisol and the sodium thiosulfate and the pleco caves. When the fish come up for availability, because right now I'm working on getting the Montezumas ready, the short fin green dragons ready, the long fin green dragons ready, the Basilia volifera are having a good spring and they're coming along, the Olympia negrofasciata are coming along. So when it comes time that those are ready to be released, I'm going to put out a brief Select Aquatics available video that will say, hey, they're ready to go, and I can even show you in the video how many there are, and you can get an idea where there will be, and it'll be a first come, first served kind of thing. And then I'll sell them out till they're down, and then try to rotate species in and out, so that though I may not have all of them available all the time, I will probably always have 3 or 4 available all the time. The Doodroi have been great, the Tiger Limias have been great as far as reproduction goes, the shrimp are always pretty much available, other than when it's too warm to ship them. But then the rest of the species on the list that I mentioned will come in and out of rotation as they're ready to sell. So that way I hope to provide the highest quality fish for the longest term into the future, and possibly every once in a while sleep in past 5 in the morning, who knows. So anyway, that's my plans here for the future. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about are the green dragons. Okay, I'm about to tell you all the secrets you need to know for those of you who want to breed the green dragons, get them from me and get them out into the hobby. There's really been not a series of big secrets about it, but it's a case where I have to explain how they were first derived and developed, which I'll tell you. I had a person recently who I was saying to him, how you need to breed them a certain way, and he goes, I'm not going to mess with your genetics. Well, there's really no my genetics to it. What happened was there was a mutation pair of these fish bred by a guy who got a bunch of fish in an estate sale in Florida. He lived in Chicago. And the guy in Florida was trying to develop a line of albino plecos. These albinos would throw these kind of off-colored fish occasionally. And in one of the spawns were these fish that had yellow streaking in the fins, and he had a pair, 2 of them. And his wife, supposedly, as the story goes, named them green dragons. He didn't want them, didn't want to pursue them, so he sent them to a friend of mine here in Denver. So my friend in Denver was all excited that he got these things called a green dragon, and he said to me that they'd been developed in the Czech Republic. That's what he thought. So then he said, I don't have room to grow them out. Why don't you raise the young up and then sell them, and I'll split it 50-50 with you. So I'll provide you with young that are about a week old, and then you grow them up and then sell them. So at that time, because I wanted to find out about this fish myself, I said, sure. And he gave me about 250 fry over that first month. Of those 250 fry, there were 6 that could be called roughly a little yellow in the fins. Of those 6, there were 2 that were long-finned, and it just happened to be a male and a female. That was where all the green dragons started from. They were a very poorly colored, charcoal-colored fish. And when they produced their fry was a mix of short fins and long fins, pretty much 60% short fins, 40% long fins. A good 30% were albinos, and the rest were calicos, chocolates, any kind of variety of things. And there was one morph in there that was very common that had spots all over it, little dots all over it. So my friend called those are lemon drops. Okay, great, you can call them lemon drops. But there were very, very, very few that were ever born with that yellow streaking in the fins. So I bred out many, many hundreds of them and continued to carefully pick out the ones that had what to me looked to be the closest thing to green in them. Today, I'm in my 7th generation. Now, those of you who bred guppies, or if you've ever been involved with guppies, you're always breeding new traits that you're looking for, and guppy breeders all know that it takes about 11 generations to set a trait. So the green dragon in its 7th generation is still very new. When I say at my website that I only sell today about 40% of the fish that I raise as green dragons, that number may be actually a little bit higher. It's probably, lower. My numbers are probably closer to 35%. And the reason for that is that there's still about 20% albinos. Of course, albinos have never been crossed back into the line. The poor color, poor finnage, I go ahead and I call for that. Plus short fins then are separated and they're sold separately. So what I end up with is 35 to 40% that are green dragons, and even right up to the time that they're shipped, if I don't like the way the fins look or I don't like the coloration, then it doesn't get shipped. They go to a variety of different avenues. Rarely do I call fish anymore, but they don't go out to customers. So that's why my green dragons look the way they do. They're much more consistent than they were when I started, and they are, but they still have a long way to go. Now, what the green is you're fussing, you're walking a line with a leucistic fish. So, for instance, many fish will produce albino fish. The plecos. This pleco, by the way, is a mix of 3 species. The L338 was crossed with the L156. That's where the dots come from on the lemon drops. And then that was then mixed in with a good quality long fin common bristlenose. Some call that Ancestor cirrhosis. But it's not known of the provenance of the albinos that were used. This is a mixture that's been known about in the hobby for quite a while, and I understand they were produced back in the 70s and 80s in Germany. But from checking I've been doing, I don't believe that they still exist. So anyway, my goal in developing the green dragon was to breed away from the spots. I don't get spotted fish anymore. Breed away from the charcoal colored fish. I see very few of those anymore, but they do occur. And to develop the most extravagant finnage and the green color. So when you have a fish that had an albino fish as part of its makeup from the start, when you cross that with a normal colored fish, just because of the way the genetics work, you'll often throw leucistic fish. Leucistic fish are like a yellow background fish, but it has black eyes. They're usually hardier than albinos, and you don't want a leucistic fish with the green dragons either, because you're not really looking for a yellowish gray fish with black eyes. But the green are from fish that have a percentage of that leucistic tendency in their genetic makeup. So, I could go looking for, like for instance, my gold alvarezi that I have here, that's a fully leucistic fish. The wild alvarezi is a very pretty gray, green and blue fish with a gray background. The leucistic gold alvarezi is just like any other gold species, which are the leucistic forms of their species, and they usually have a colorless or a yellow background against whatever color that you've got. So with the green dragon plecos, it tends to want to go toward the leucistic side, and so that gives you that leucistic background of the little bit of yellow against the natural brown coloration with the yellow-green in the fins, produces a forest green color as they get older. And so when I'm choosing them when they're young, I look for slightly yellow fish, but not too yellow, because I know that they're going to develop into a nice green. So that's how you get the green. Okay, for those who've been asking me, how do you get the green? And it's just a case of breeding a ton of them and having a good eye and watching very carefully and just picking what it is that have what you're looking for. I can tell you all this because if you were to buy fish from me tomorrow, and you were to take, and you bought a pair, or you got a young fish and you had a pair, or you bought 6 and you got a pair out of that, the fish that you buy are going to be progeny of my best fish, but it's going to be still an array that fish produces. So you can start breeding that fish right now, and I'm probably still going to be 2 to 3 years ahead of you with respect to coming up with a good quality green fish. I have a lot of customers right now that are writing me and saying, I bought green dragons from so-and-so, I bought them from here, I bought them from there. Is this really a green dragon? This fish looks pretty not like what I expected. I didn't get permission from everyone to show a picture of one of these examples, but I will show you now a picture that was sent to me by a customer just last week of the fish that he bought as green dragons. And a lot of people are selling green dragons for $30, $40, and they look like this. So when you take the fish and you want to breed them, you want to make sure that you do a good job of looking out and maintaining that green and developing that green. Okay, I just mentioned about how some people are selling the green dragons for $30 and $40 a piece. And some have written to me and they said, $25, how can you justify $25? Well, there's a trick. You're really not paying $25 for the plecos. Yeah, I know the price is $25, but here's the story on why they're priced the way they are, and in fact, why the price is going to have to go up. I sold the green dragon plecos for $15 a piece because that's what it took for me to break even. I didn't set out when I first started the green dragons to make any money on them. And so I feed 180 pounds of green beans here a month. And as I just mentioned, I only sell about 40% of the fish that I raise as longfin green dragons. I do sell a few short fins, and I do sell the albinos when they're available. But my break-even point was $15 a fish. So I just offered them for $15 a fish to try to get them out there and get them going. And then the shipping would be whatever the cost of shipping would be for whatever size order you had. So if you ordered, at that time, if you ordered, this would have been 6-7 years ago, if you ordered 2 plecos for $30, then the shipping on that would have probably run you about $40, $45. Today, an equivalent cost to ship 2 plecos would be about $65. So people would write me back and they'd say, man, I really love the cost of your plecos. It's really nice that you sell them so cheaply, but the shipping is a killer. I don't want to do the shipping. Sorry, broke off the order. Yeah, that happened to me a lot. So I sat down with a pencil and paper and found out that there was a if I could pay $10 per fish towards shipping, then I could offer a one price $40 for any number of plecos in a box to anywhere in the U.S. So that's what I did. So now I have $40 one price shipping, but the fish are $25 a piece. I'm still making $15 a piece. $10 of that still goes to the post office. My sales tripled, and actually people wrote me and they said, I'm so glad that I really don't like that I'm paying more for your plecos, but I'd much rather the money went to you than to the post office. So after I thought about that for a few seconds, I thought, well, I guess it's probably best to leave the policy as is. Well, this past January, the post office raised their rates substantially. So now that figure is much higher than the $10 per fish subsidy that I have to add. I'll continue to offer the $40 one price shipping, but the price of the plecos themselves will actually have to go up. So that's why they're priced the way that they are. For those of you who are breeding them and want to sell them for $30 or $40 a piece, and you're selling them locally, more power to you. But of course, anyone shipping them overnight is going to have to pay the standard USPS rate. From here, the Postal Service rate is half what UPS is. So I once had a box at a time when the USPS was $35 to ship a pair of fish across country, and UPS wanted $108. So I've talked to UPS salesmen recently, actually, and I said, here's the rates I'm paying currently. If you can beat them, then we can talk. And as it turned out, they were not able to come close. So USPS, as expensive as it might seem, is actually the far cheapest of the bunch. FedEx doesn't ship fish from this area, so I can't ship FedEx. But that's why the plecos are priced the way that they are. And why, as I mentioned, the price will have to go up a little bit. I have to sit down here and figure out exactly what that's going to be. And that will be mentioned in the next redo of the website. Right now I'm aiming to have the longfin green dragon plecos to release a Select Aquatics available video toward the end of next month, and to hopefully get them out. I only have about 100 this time around, but after the last video where I put that whole new sump system in, my egg production has really taken off. I've had a lot of egg production. So I've got a number coming up for the next cycle, which will probably be late fall, early spring. I don't know. It takes me about 6-7 months to grow them up to the 2 to 3 inch size. But I really do hope to start offering them in much larger numbers from here on out. So that's the story on the green dragons. And thank you so much for all your emails, and again for your concern about my little spending in the hospital and all of that. I'm back here with you, and let's go get them. Take care. Bye bye.